Today I will be making fried eggs for my wheelchair. Just imagine sunny side up, breakfast skillet, egg, hot and ready. Take that and slap it onto the wheel of a wheelchair. That is the vision for what I would like to create today. And there's a very good reason for me wanting to create such a thing. It is because I would like to cosplay as an egg. More on that later. If you're new here, I do have a series of wheel cover builds. I've been doing this for a while. So how I would like to construct the egg wheels, I would like the base, like the white of the egg, to just be my standard fabric wheel cover. So that would be following my basic wheel cover tutorial. I would like the yolk of the egg to be a bit three-dimensional. I think I'm gonna stuff it like a plushie, and that would be following the techniques I used in my pumpkin wheels video. There is one more layer of difficulty though, which I have never done before on a pair of wheel covers. Instead of making this a perfect circle like every wheel cover I've made in the past, I would like this to be a bit more of an irregular shape, because fried eggs don't come out as like absolutely perfect circles, right? So let's talk materials. I am doing something a little bit different with this one, and that is I'm using a very thick stiffener layer. This is, I wonder if it says on this paper that's in here, Flex Foam Sew In Soft Foam Stabilizer. Machine safe. But essentially, it's pretty thick, right? In all my previous wheel covers, I've just used something as simple as felt or any sort of stabilizer, any sort of other fabric. But since I'm not doing a perfect circle and I need a bit more structure, we're using sew-in foam. For the actual egg, I'm just using cotton because it was in my stash, so that means it's free. Everyone knows that if you take fabric from your fabric stash, it's free, right? Doesn't matter how much you paid for it in the past. I am hoping to do maybe some dyeing or painting to give it kind of like the fried edges of the egg later, and I know cotton is gonna take really well to dye. So that is another bonus of using cotton. Let's get cooking. I'm going to start on these egg wheels the same way I start on all my wheel covers, by cutting out a big circle. This circle is going to be the diameter to the inside of the push rim on your wheelchair. This is actually thick enough that I was able to just set it into the wheel and it held itself in place. So that makes this next part really easy. I'm going to start sketching out our fried egg. The important part with this not being a perfect circle is I need to identify where all the push rim connections are. So that's these little connections between the push rim and the wheel of the chair. This is how I connect all my fabric wheel covers onto the chair. So ideally, I would like the widest parts of the egg to line up with where these connections are. I have 2 eggs, so putting this on the wheelchair, I can match up where I have marked the push rim connections. So the idea is that like this wide part here connects to this connection here. And exciting news, this is the very first set of wheel covers I'm making on my brand new wheelchair. So if you did not know, I finally got a completely custom to me wheelchair. The whole process through the medical system, starting with a prescription from a doctor and getting it approved and everything. If you'd like a video on the process of me getting this wheelchair, let me know in the comments. I can't help you get your own prescription mobility aid, but if you would just like a story time of like what it was like for me, let me know down in the comments and I'd be willing to make a video just telling the story. Not giving medical advice because I'm not qualified to do that, but I am qualified to make eggs. Now we can move on to cutting into our fabric. So using our egg sewable foam shape as a template, I'm going to cut this out. I need 2 layers, an outside and a lining. Then I'm going to sew the outside layer fabric onto the sewable foam. This is just a straight stitch around the edges to tack everything together. So moving on to our egg yolk, I have found the easiest way to get a circle pattern in sewing is to just locate a circle in your house and trace it. So I'm using the lid of a pot. It feels very fitting for me to use cookware. So once I have our egg yolk circles, one for each egg, I am doing a gathering stitch around the edges, and I'm going to just a little bit gather in the edges. This is gonna give our yolk the three-dimensional pillow shape. I'm only able to machine sew part of the yolk down because, you know, it's a circle, you need to be able to get the machine in there. But this is how it's looking, and the yolks are going to be stuffed. So while I am stuffing and hand sewing our yolk, I will tell you why I am cosplaying as an egg. So my friends, they very much like this show called Hazbin Hotel. If you watched the Kumoricon vlog that they did for me, they went to like every Hazbin Hotel event happening at Kumoricon. Of course, I'm going to cosplay from the show so I can be silly with my friends at con. I've also watched Hazbin Hotel. It is an 18+ show, so don't watch it with the kiddos around. But I watched it too, and it's a good show. I really like the music. But there's no character in the show that I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's totally me. I need to cosplay them immediately. I am cosplaying the Egg Boy. They're like these little minions that are eggs. But also, this is just a really cheap costume to make. Just thrifted it. And I also think it is funny. I am hoping that rolling around as an egg in a suit while having fried eggs on my wheels will have some of the same meme qualities as the Best Jeanist and Jill chair look did. Do you ever look at something so much that it no longer feels real? I'm just looking at these like, is this what a fried egg looks like? Has a fried egg ever looked like this? But next up is I will be making all the connector strips and sewing those on. And it can go much, much faster if you just use white bias tape and then you don't have to sew all these little tubes. I do not have white bias tape in my stash. So I cut out all of my little connector strips. I got my little drinky drink and I'm like getting ready to sew all these together. I opened the drawer. I had white bias tape. I had it all along. It was just in the wrong place. Bias tape isn't supposed to live in here. Okay, but for real though, how many rainbow high combs can you spot in this drawer? I am so good at organizing. At this point, I've already cut out the fabric. This fabric can't be really used for many other things. So I'm just gonna sew all my little tubes, top stitch everything, and just make the connectors the old-fashioned way. I'm gonna sew the connectors onto the egg in all those places I had marked out, all the places where the egg is a bit wider. Put the lining on it, sew the lining down, and that should be eggs. Those are eggs, hopefully. Egg wheel covers. I still need to add snaps to all of our connection pieces. Right now it's just pinned, but it looks like everything is holding up just fine. It doesn't feel floppy. I also think from a distance it does look like a fried egg. Here are the finished eggs. They have their snaps sewn on, and I just like to add a little brown around the edges. I'm gonna try and do this with coffee dyeing. I have this ginormous cup and it's just literally coffee grounds with hot water. A few reasons. First of all, it's just cheaper than RIT dye, but also coffee is a lot less toxic than RIT dye. If you're using dye, you need to make sure it has its own specific pot. You don't want to be eating off of anything that you have dyed stuff in. If this didn't work, I would totally pull out the RIT dye and the dye pot and, you know, do all that. I just really love it when the less expensive and less toxic option works first. So I've hung the eggs up to dry, and normally that would be the end of this video. Usually when I do wheel covers and a matching costume, they are separate videos. One for the wheel cover, one for the costume. But with this Egg Boy costume, there's just not much to the costume. I thrifted the whole outfit and I'm just making a few tiny little accessories. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just talk about the costume for a little bit and then we'll get to the final reveal. One of the things I'm making for the cosplay is an eye mask, and this is to look like the cracks in the eggshell around the Egg Boi's eyes. This is something that can totally be accomplished with makeup. I just can't be bothered to do this much makeup every time I get into the cosplay, so I think this is going to be a huge time saver. I'm starting with 2mm craft foam. This is a guess and check sort of process. It was also really important to see how this mask would look under the wig I am using to make sure the wig would not be obscuring a lot of the points on the mask. Once I have a shape I'm happy with for the mask, I will be covering it with Worbla. So Worbla is a thermoplastic, and as you heat it with a heat gun, it becomes very soft and malleable, and you can shape it. And then as it cools down, it's very strong and durable. So I am carefully heating up the Worbla and wrapping it around the edges of our foam mask. So then I am forming the mask to the features of my face. Be very careful with this part. If it's too hot, you could hurt yourself, but make sure it's warm enough. You can still shape the Worbla a little. And the really cool thing with Worbla is it will hold this shape. Then I am pulling out my Dremel tool and I am drilling holes in either side of the mask. Then we are on to priming and painting. Finally, I would like to add some felt to the back of the mask. Some of the Worbla edges can be a bit uncomfortable on the face, and I also think this looks much cleaner. And then finally adding an elastic strap so that the mask stays on my face. The second thing I will be making for this cosplay is the little top hat. I will be making this out of EVA foam. I am once again looking around my house for circles, and then I need a long rectangle to connect the pieces. A top hat is really just 3 pieces of foam. One modification I am making though is in the reference, the Egg Boi hats. It's a bit wider at the top and smaller as the hat gets towards the brim. So I am taking the side seam in the hat and I am tapering it so that it is thinner at the bottom and wider at the top. Things like using strong glue and dremeling and sanding, these are things that need to be done in a well-ventilated area and with protective equipment. You don't want this in your lungs. The only good ventilation area I have right now is outside, and it is absolutely freezing, so I don't have any footage of this. Once again, we are on to priming, painting, sealing. And for some finishing touches, I have a tube of fabric from this pink poly satin, and I'm going to use that as the little pink band for the hat. I'm just hand sewing that on. As far as attachments go, I see a lot of people using magnets to attach head accessories, but as someone who's rolling around the convention sitting in a giant piece of metal, I don't like magnets. They can stick to the wheelchair. So for my attachment, I'm using 3 safety pins glued to the bottom of the hat, and this just pins through the fabric of the wig. And with those small pieces of the cosplay done, it is time for the final reveal. Final thoughts on the Egg Boi. I think the egg wheels came together very quickly to the point that I'm actually worried this video was boring for you guys because there was no catastrophic failure. With most of my videos, there is some sort of mistake, some sort of problem solving that I have to overcome to make the wheel cover work, and that was just not present in this video. Everything just worked on the first time, and I was pretty confident it was going to work because I've made so many wheel covers. As far as the actual cosplay goes, I'm pretty happy with the things I made, the eye mask and little top hat. I'm pretty happy with like the outfit that I thrifted for this. It has pockets. I do hope in the future that I can do even more complex wheel covers, and maybe that'll be more interesting. We've kind of reached the point where we have left the like how to make normal wheel covers tutorials behind. Been there, done that. Every year I'm going more and more into kind of unrealistic and strange wheel covers just to keep innovating and keep making something new. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!